so much, and what a wonderful reception. Wow, I mean, putting this together in a couple of days, and let me thank Mike. Where's Mike? There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Let me first introduce a few folks who came in with me today. First and foremost, the person who is at my side and helping me, and I always refer to as my rock. She's much prettier than a rock. And that's my wonderful and sweet and hard-charging and supportive wife, Karen, who's here with me. We don't have all 7 of the children here, but we have a very good sampling. It's sort of hard traveling with 7 kids, and as you know, we have a little special gift among our 7 who we don't take out on the road very often. Her name is Isabella, and I just want to thank everybody here, because I know how many people are out of country. We're praying for her when she had a little bit of a health crisis, and she has pulled through wonderfully. I had a chance to be home with her on Saturday evening and Sunday, and she is happy, healthy, and doing great. And I want to thank all of you for prayers for Bella. So thank you One of Bella's brothers and one of her sisters is here today, and our oldest boy, John, is here, and our next oldest, Daniel, is here. Sarah Maria is here, so that's like a special treat for us, because we've been traveling a lot around the country, and like I said, we don't get back home to this area of the country very often, and so since we were close to Pittsburgh, my in-laws, Karen's parents, came down to visit us and had breakfast with us this morning, and are joining us here at the rally today, and that's Dr. Ken and Betty Lee Garber. We're excited to be here, and no better place to have a family day than here in Steubenville. And I just want to thank all the folks from the university for helping, for getting folks here. And you have a gem here in this college. It is a beacon of light for the country. It is a beacon of light for the Catholic Church in a sea of colleges and universities that have gotten dimmer over the decades and centuries in this country. And you folks have provided a very bright and faithful education for children in Catholic thought and in Catholic deed. And I want to thank you for what you're doing here in Steubenville, Ohio, to be that light, that rekindling of the flame of authentic Catholic doctrine. So I want to thank you all for what you do. It's also great to be here with my friend Mike DeWine, the Attorney General of the state of Ohio. Quite a boost last week when he stepped forward and endorsed our campaign and pointed out, I think, what a lot of folks have been saying across this country about where this campaign is headed, and the importance of having the right selection for our nominee. Someone who's got a positive message for the country. Someone who doesn't think politics is the equivalent of mud wrestling, but a higher calling, a calling to go out and paint a picture of how your lives here in Steubenville, how your lives here in Ohio and across the country are going to be improved as a result of the leadership and the policies that we put forward. And we've kept to that plane. We've been out there talking about the important issues of the day. We've been talking about how we're going to not just rebuild the economy, which is obviously vitally important. We know here, whether it's Pittsburgh or Wheeling or Steubenville, the three states and the three towns along the river here, it's important to understand that this area of the country has really suffered really emblematically of, if you will, the Rust Belt of this country, where we saw the devastation of the loss of manufacturing jobs, the devastation of radical environmental policies and what they've done to our energy production in this country. Here in southeastern Ohio and southwestern Pennsylvania and West Virginia, coal is a very important part of our heritage. Obviously, for those of you who followed our campaign, it's an important part of my heritage. My grandfather came to this country, he first came to the auto factories of Detroit in 1925. He came to southwestern Pennsylvania, to the coal fields, the same coal fields that run through West Virginia and southeastern Ohio. The same coal fields that I suspect many of you in this room can trace to ancestors who worked hard and dug that coal to create the power to run the steel mills here in this area and the other manufacturing facilities, empowered our country. And they did so with great sacrifice. They did so because they wanted their children to have the opportunity to do better, to be able to rise in society, to be able to have the opportunities to, as my father did after World War II, to be able to go to college. And then maybe someday, maybe someone in the family would maybe run for president of the United States. For those jobs that can sustain a family, for power in this country that is affordable, not just coal, but all energy. This is an important part of the American success story. It was affordable, low-cost energy. Really drove this country. It drove this country because we had a vision from the coal mines here, but also I remind everybody that the first well drilled in America was drilled in western Pennsylvania. The Great Well in Titusville. So this area of the country is rich in energy, rich in tradition, and rich in understanding of how energy drives this economy. It drove the economy of southwestern Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio for a long time. And through a variety of things, yes, problems with management, problems with negotiations, but actually there were bigger problems. The bigger problems of environmental regulation. In many cases, environmental regulation that has gone extreme, particularly in this administration. What they have done, and I referred to it the other day, and I got criticized by some of our, less than erudite members of the National Press Corps who have a difficulty understanding when you refer to someone's ideology to the point where they elevate Earth and they say that, that men and humanity is just one of a variety of different species on the earth and should be treated no differently. And that we elevate, in fact, look at this ideology of the earth, if you will, and rise it above the interests of man. Whereas we all know that man has a responsibility of stewards of the earth. That we are good stewards, and we have a responsibility to good stewards. Why? Because unlike the earth, we're intelligent, and we can actually manage things. And leaving things for nature, as those in the radical environmentalists would like to do, don't touch anything, leave it alone, nature will take care of itself. Yes, it will, and it won't be pretty. We can actually manage and husband things. You plant a garden and let the earth take care of it, you're not going to get much out of it. You let the forest grow and let it take care of itself, and what you'll have is boom and bust, decay and destruction. But if you husband it, if you take care of it, you nurture it, use the intellect. It's so funny, this party that criticizes the right for being anti-science, but when it comes to the management of the earth, they are the anti-science ones. We are the ones who stand for science, the technology, the music, the research, the law, to be able to make sure that we have the culture of the country and maintain good and stable environment. There's no better example than this area of the country. Look at what we did 100 years ago, or less actually. When this area is, I remember there was a quote, I can't remember who it was from, who came to Pittsburgh during the heyday of the steel industry when we didn't have any environmental regulations in Allegheny County. And someone looked at it and saw it was night all the time in Pittsburgh. It was black. And they said to Pittsburgh, abandon it. And what did we do? Well, we here locally, not the federal government, not the state government, the local government came forward and said, no, we've got to do something about this. And eventually the community gathered together and passed clean air regulations and was able to begin to change things. There's obviously a role for government to play in making sure that we have responsible environmental stewardship. No more than we want to leave it to Earth to manage itself, we want to leave it to individuals to be able to do whatever they want to do. That's not my philosophy of government. It's not my philosophy of freedom. Freedom isn't to do whatever you want to do. It's to do what you ought to do. Right? To do what we ought to do. We must be good stewards of this environment. But let's use our intellect, let's use our technology for the benefit of both man and the environment. These are the kinds of nuanced discussions that tend to fly over the heads of folks who want to just divide. Who want to just say, oh, you're either for the environment or you're against the environment. Instead of taking a responsible position of saying that for decades and longer, here in America, we have had a policy and programs that actually try to do both. Preserve the environment, provide and conserve it to the extent we can, and also use the plentiful resources that God has given us to provide for the improvement of the quality of life of the people in this country. That's a rational and ordered approach. It's something you probably learned here at Franciscan. Right? We need energy policy that's going to develop these resources cleanly and safely. Why? We have an economy that's beginning in spite of the stiff headwinds blowing out of Washington, D.C. On the regulatory front, on, yes, the tax front, Obamacare taxes are beginning to take hold now in certain industries like the medical device industry. And so the regulatory burdens that the Obama administration has continued to put on, for example, they just shuttered 6 coal-fired power plants in this country, 500 jobs gone because of a lack of real scientific evidence. They put forth these phony studies. I referred to global warming as not climate science, but political science. They have nothing to do with real cost-benefit analysis, real understanding of how we have to value both the environment and its impact on man and the world. They have radical ideas. They're pulling coal permits. Granted permits they're pulling. Never done that before. Permitting is getting harder to do for coal. I was just up in the Bakken. The Bakken is an area of North Dakota, up in the northwest corner. They have things, they showed me a piece of shale that, other than it wasn't quite as shiny as you would look like as a piece of coal, but it looked like a piece of coal. And they showed me this big rock, and they said, this is oil. So they get oil out of these rocks. And some said you can't get blood out of a stone. What do you mean? You get oil out of a stone. And so here you have this technology that's being used. It's been used for a long time in America, called hydraulic fracking. And this technology is producing oil in great amounts. And it's a high quality oil. It's light sweet crude. Go to your internet and look up the price of light sweet crude versus the other crudes that are out there. It's the highest value. It's the easiest to refine. It's got all sorts of great qualities to it. And I was stood in a wellhead in the Bakken, in Tioga, North Dakota. They told me the oil coming out of this well is being sold at a $32 a barrel discount instead of a premium, which light sweet crude would produce in the market. And I said, well, why is that the case if you've got this great commodity here? He said, because we don't have a pipeline to send it to a refinery, so we have to truck it and haul it and rail it. And it just costs so much more that we have to sell it at a discount. In the face of that, in the face of Alaska's production at the North Slope of Alaska and Prudhoe Bay is depleting. Within 5 to 10 years, we won't have any production from Alaska unless we open up Amlock. Why? Because it's depleting to the point where there won't be enough oil in the pipeline for the pipeline to flow. Mexico is going to go from an exporter of oil to an importer within the next 5 to 10 years. That's 1.5 million barrels today, 500,000 from Alaska, 2.5 million from Venezuela. They send their crude oil here, but China is building a refinery there. And guess where that oil is going to go from now on? In the face of almost 5 million barrels a day of oil coming into this country that is going to be depleted and gone, the President of the United States, with a new oil find in North Dakota and in Canada with oil sands, what does he do? He says, build that pipeline and send that to China. We don't care. Think about what this president is doing. Here we are now coming up in the summertime, when if we had a pipeline being built right now, and it could be being built right now the president could sign an order to build that pipeline. We'd have the construction jobs and we'd have the knowledge of the industry that all of this oil production would be coming online. Instead, we're at a point, because of the mismanagement of the president's policies overseas, because of his mismanagement of the Persian Gulf and our friends in the state of Israel, we see a tension in rising prices. I was talking to some folks in Chicago the other day, and they are anticipating $5 a gallon for gasoline in Chicago. Here we are just budding a recovery. And I know as prices we see going up at the pump, folks who are just starting to be able to breathe a little bit, as the economy starts to come back a little bit, unemployment starts to go down, all of a sudden they're going to be hit with the same force of wind that hit us in 2008 in the summer that caused us to go into a recession. All because of the radical environmentalist policies of this president. Ladies and gentlemen, we need someone who understands, who comes from the coal fields, who comes from the steel mills, who understands what average working people in America need to be able to provide for themselves and their families.